He's aiming at his target, 50-year-old Brian Thompson.
What happened?
You are not black, if your skin is not brown, if you are not melanated.
Do you condemn the shooter shooting Donald Trump?
No. The question is, why have others chosen to be silent amid the deadliest hate for Jews since the Holocaust?
This employee wrote to about 11 staff members under her supervision that they should, quote, avoid homes advertising Trump.
The 2020 Minneapolis riots, hundreds of buildings were burned, vandalized, or looted.
I believe most people are good and want good for others. So how did we get to a place where a non-trivial number of people are supporting violence and other totalitarian measures to reach political goals? In 1967, there was a movement called the Long March Through the Institutions. This is a Marxist movement that speaks of controlling government, education, media, and sciences. This is designed to make sure that you, and these are in quotes, are on the right side of history, that you trust the experts, and that you stay informed. These all sound like positive things, right? Before we go forward, we have to talk about critical theory. This is a lens in which to view the world as oppressor versus oppressed in every scenario. This is where you get the changing of history, the stretching of truths, the changing of definitions, and basic moral values. There's no one who explains it better than James Lindsay, so let's take a listen to a short clip.
Marx, in the Communist Manifesto, communism can be summed up in a single sentence: abolition of private property, but not all property, bourgeois property. Whiteness as bourgeois property unlocks the whole story. When you understand that whiteness as property means whiteness is bourgeois property, and then you map the Communist Manifesto directly onto that, abolish private property, abolish whiteness. It's the same thing, and that's the rhetorical move made by Cheryl Harris in 1993. Told you we're going to give you the definitive, flatly candid word on critical race theory and what it is here.
This is how you get books like Gender Queer in school libraries. It's how you get Queers for Palestine or Defund the Police. When you start to see the world through this new lens, they are able to get you to believe that Hamas are freedom fighters. Let's pause real quick. I'm totally in support of LGBTQ rights, but that word or saying has been twisted by Marxist ideology. It's the right of no adult to choose harmful and experimental medical procedures for a child. Even puberty blockers regularly have long-term effects. There are conclusive studies out of Europe that do not get accepted into the science here in the US. Here's an anecdote that shows the extremes of this science and how it can affect the world. These beliefs are so ridiculous, I wonder how someone could even believe it. Here's a video of Peter Boghossian explaining how this comes to be.
The people who we often describe as the woke seem very intolerant to having a conversation. They don't want to have the discussion.
Correct.
Why is that?
Because they believe that, to paraphrase Audre Lorde, the master's tools cannot disassemble or disable the master's house. The master's tools are reason, science, it's called epistemic adequacy, which is basically having a good reason for believing what you believe.
So Enlightenment values, really.
Yeah, Enlightenment values. And so they believe that the master's house is racism, misogyny, homophobia, sexism. And the way that you construct that house is through the tools of science, is through the method that we've used to solve problems for literally 1,000 years.
Which is why so many of these activists seem so unreasonable, because they don't believe in reason.
Well, correct. And they also don't want to have a conversation because they believe that that's platforming. So they believe that the speech itself, there's something intrinsic in the speech itself that causes the problem and elevates the problem.
This, dare I say, mind virus has infiltrated science and the humanities. This has had real-life consequences in the form of swaying important public policies. This is accomplished through a corrupt peer review system. I'll let James Lindsay explain how they were able to shed a light on some of the corruption.
Dear Dr. Helen Wilson, I have now closely considered the revisions of your manuscript, Dog Park, and will recommend its publication in Gender, Place, and Culture. You have done very good work to address the issues the reviewers raised and have clarified your arguments. Thank you for your contribution to gender, place, and culture, and I hope to be seeing your manuscript in print. Yours truly, PhD, Managing Editor, Gender, Place, and Culture. We have an accepted paper in the #1 feminist geography journal.
Since approximately June of 2017, I, along with two other concerned academics, Peter Boghossian and Helen Pluckrose, have been writing intentionally broken academic papers and submitting them to highly respected journals in fields that study gender, race, sexuality, and similar topics. We did this to expose a political corruption that's taken hold of the university. By this point, several of these papers have been accepted in highly respected journals, and one that claims that dog humping incidents can be taken as evidence of rape culture has been officially honored as excellent scholarship. I'm not going to lie to you, we had a lot of fun with this project.
The reviewers are worried that we didn't respect the dog's privacy.
That's the concern.
We respected the channel.
But don't let that lead you to believe that we're not addressing a serious problem. If you have a few minutes, I'll try to explain. To be clear up front, we think studying topics like gender, race, and sexuality is worthwhile, and getting it right is extremely important. The problem is how these topics are being studied right now. A culture has developed in which only certain conclusions are allowed, like those that make whiteness and masculinity problematic. The fields we're concerned about put social grievances ahead of objective truth. So as a simple summary, we call the problem grievance studies. To test the depth of this problem, my collaborators and I dedicated ourselves to a 1 to 2 year secret project targeting top grievance studies journals with an agreement to publicly release our findings no matter what the outcome. We started officially on August 16, 2017, and by Thanksgiving we were in trouble. We had begun ambitiously and mostly stupidly. Our first papers were really only suited to test the hypothesis that we could penetrate their leading journals with poorly researched hoax papers. That wasn't the case, and we were wrong for thinking we might be able to. So by late November, it looked like all we'd accomplish is ruining our reputations.
If this doesn't achieve anything, it would actually frighten me.
We needed to change our approach, so we walked back from the hoaxing and began to engage with the existing scholarship in these fields more deeply. This led us to learn a lot more about the inner workings of grievance studies.
The best I can tap into is that there's this kind of like religious architecture in their mind where privilege is sin, privilege is evil.
So if you're consuming some form of media and you find yourself wondering how in the world someone could believe a certain thing, this is probably why. And we need to keep talking about it. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks.